The best business card I can give someone is a book. When someone is interested in my services and perhaps hasn't yet made a decision, if I walk in there with a book or I talk to them or give them a copy of my book, you're an author for life. When I wrote my first book, I became an author. No one can ever take that away from me. When you walk into a business and you are an author and you give them a copy of your book, they're going to have a look at that book. They're going to put you up in their estimations, because writing a book is still considered to be one of the most amazing achievements, like you climbed Everest? Oh, you wrote a book? They're held in really high esteem. And it just meant for me I had a wonderful calling card.
Well, hello there, ladies and gents. Andrew Griffiths here to talk about the business of being an author. And today is a fabulous interview conversation for me with a wonderful, wonderful author and a dear, dear friend of mine, Mr. Darren Finkelstein. How are you, Darren?
Hey, Andrew. It's lovely to get the band back together again. I'm terrific, thank you.
That makes me so happy to have you here. Today, you're the author of 5 books, and we're going to talk about that as we move through this interview. And you're one of the most effective and one of the most sought-after accountability coaches in Australia. But in saying that, you also have clients around the world. And I will right off the cuff say that if anyone watching this, listening to this, is struggling with getting things done, you got to reach out and get in touch with Darren. You are the real deal when it comes to accountability.
Ooh, so I'm blushing now, Andrew. Thanks for that rap. I really appreciate that. Well, I've followed everything you've taught me, and I have a wonderful mentor in yourself. So mission accomplished.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. And what I'd like to do is just go back to that first day that we met. And this was in about 2012, 2011, I guess.
2011, yeah. Yep.
2011. Now, to just set the scene a bit, I'd just been asked to teach a publishing module for an entrepreneurial program. So this was like a 40-week entrepreneurial program. And the module that I was asked to teach by Daniel Priestley was about publishing, to teach people how to write books and publish them. Now, set the scene. There's a room. There's maybe 30 people, something like that, maybe 40 people. Everyone's bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I'm at the front telling them about all of the reasons they should publish and all of the work that was going to come up, and it was going to be difficult, it was going to be hard. But there was a look of trepidation and hopefulness in almost everyone's eyes in the room, except for one pair of eyes. And I'm going to ask Darren exactly what unfolded in that session.
Wow, that session's going to haunt me forever, I think. But out of a bit of adversity in an interaction you and I had, blossomed this wonderful friendship that we've carried it forward. So it's wonderful how it starts, but it's even better how it all ends, and what's going on. So I'm in this classroom. There's probably 40 people in there, and you ask the question of. You ask a question, put it out to the floor, and anybody want to write a book? And I think I looked around. Everyone was a bit scared. It was sort of hour one of our first day together, and I sort of leant back in my chair and I put up my hand, and you said yes, and I said I ain't gonna write a book. Hope we can censor that, put a little beep in there, but that's exactly what I said. And your reaction to that was priceless. I was being a smart ass, and I shouldn't have been, but I honestly felt at the time I wasn't going to write a book, and there was no way you were going to tell me anything. This is like minute 5 of our 40 weeks together or something. And I was determined already never to write a book. So there was nothing you were going to tell me from there on that could change my mind.
So what was the turning point? Because we've already said you've written 5 books, right? Which is the most bizarre thing. So what did I say that changed that for you?
Well, so there was a couple of things that happened. One of them, I didn't understand how a book would fit into my world, my business world. And you drew me this diagram of, the 4 quadrants. And you explained how being an author fitted into your world. And, that was a light bulb moment. I really went, oh, wow, I never thought of that. But that makes such good sense. And then, I sort of dropped my guard and felt like, oh, geez, something's coming out of this. And I remember, I think I rang my wife at lunchtime during the lunch break, and she said, how's this session going? No, none of us knew who Andrew Griffiths was. She said, how's that, the publishing session going? And I said, I think I'm going to write a book. And that was day one of the first time we got together. It started off with, no way, I'm not interested in that. And, within the space of an hour or so, I was all in, ready to go. And our relationship's been like that ever sinst.
I love
it.
All in, and I never ever let you forget that moment. And you that turning, that pushback. But that's a part of it, though, right? I think that's a really interesting part. For many people, they don't really see what is the value of a book, and the 4 quadrant kind of thing that Darren is talking about is really about my business model and how my books form such a huge part of that business model as a commercial writer. And so once that's explained, people all of a sudden go, well, hang on, I can see now how this kind of works. So, yes, you're a brand new author. I'm going to get to your first book in a second. But the thing that I wanted to really talk to you about is strategy as an author. And that's one of the things I admire about you the most, Darren. So the question that I have for you is, when you think about book strategy, what does it mean to you? And how did your thinking evolve from your first book maybe to your later books? Has there been an evolution of strategy for you? And that's a big question. So tell me what springs into your mind when I ask that.
Yeah. So when I think about strategy and I think about my author journey, I don't write the books for the hell of writing the books.
No.
I write the books with a purpose. And that purpose, I feel like I've always been one about building good relationships with all the stakeholders in my world, and understanding the needs of my clients or my potential clients, given the book is a wonderful prospecting tool, understanding the needs of those potential clients and knowing really clearly what it is that I want the reader to take away from this, and how do I want the reader to feel about me and my business and what I deliver, and how would the reader then be able to address and answer really tangible, meaningful things for them is really, really important. So when I think strategy, I think of, what does my reader want to get out of reading this book? Once they put it down, how are they going to feel? How are they going to feel about their problem, their circumstance? How does my book fit into a part of their world? And how does it, what is it I want to get out of this exercise? So I make sure that both sides, the reader and myself as the author, where our needs are really met.
Perfect. And so to me, what that is, that's that alignment between the reader and the ideal client. And because that for you is one and the same. Right, on that. So, okay, that's great. It's the intent. I'm not just writing a book for the sake of writing a book. I'm writing the book to make sure it's going to meet the needs of my ideal customer, as well as that's the ideal reader. But also for me, that in terms of, I want to convert. I want someone to read the book and then say, hey, I'm going to go and, work with this guy in whatever shape or form that might be. Great. Okay. So back then, this is your first book, all right? Honey, let's buy a boat. And to give everyone a little bit of perspective there on this particular topic, at the time, you were the boat guy. And when I met you, you owned a marina, service center and boat sales, and it was a, busy kind of place. And you didn't have a book, but you had that business as well. So tell me a little bit again then about, how, why did you write a book about honey, let's buy a boat? I guess is the obvious question.
Yes. So, just to sort of paint a picture, our business was set up at a marina. So that means you get lots of passing traffic. Dad's walking the dog on a Sunday morning. You get parents with their kids riding bikes, eating ice creams. You get people looking like a real estate agent. You look in a real estate agent's window and you see this sort of wall of properties. People could look in my window and see a world of boats. And they could look at, the big boats and the really expensive ones, which everybody tends to like to do, and they can kind of identify where they are in the marina. And so that then became a way for me to, writing a book meant that I could answer the common questions that people asked me all the time. The repetitive questions that I enjoyed answering them because, I'm passionate about it and I can explain something really clearly and not make it too complex. And it just meant that I could then have a book I could give somebody as a gift or they could buy it, but that answered all those questions and a whole lot more. And it put my spin, my answers, my feelings towards all those questions as to why a family should buy a boat. And that was the purpose of Honey, Let's Buy a Boat. It's non-gendered, so the honey can be, your male partner, it can be your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your lover. It doesn't matter. Honey could be anybody. And I often had lots of... an example, lots of ladies would come into my office and go, look, husband's thinking about buying a boat for the family. Can you tell me what that would do for our family? Very different to the guy coming in going, I want a boat to go fishing with my buddies. So it gave both sides of a story, but this book answered all those questions in the way that I believe people could be connected to boat ownership. And that was the big difference.
Well, and what I remember too, though, back when we were talking about writing the book and you're planning it out, was also the fact that the reality is that for most people, majority of people, it's a big decision to buy a boat. And there has to be more than one payoff. It can't just be, hey, this is great for the husband or great for the wife. It's got to be a family decision. And I remember distinctly how you go, I got to make sure the book is to get that across. That it's not just you buy a 12-foot boat, you do this, you do that, you do that. It's all about how do we buy a boat as a family that's going to suit all of our needs. So it really sold you and positioned you again in a very strategic way, in my view.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting question. And I look at the back of the book and I've got some testimonials from some clients. The question about boating and families, I got asked by a client. That client happens to be the CEO of Foxtel, big organisation. He wrote some nice words on the back of my book, which has been published. He said to me, Darren, why should I buy a boat from you? We're standing on the dock. Why should I buy a boat from you when maybe I think I might buy myself a Porsche? And I said, look, it's an interesting question. I get why you love a Porsche. But a Porsche holds two. A boat holds the family. You can put the whole family in the boat. You can all do it safely and you can spend a day together out on the water instead of you by yourself or you with just one other person out of your family. Who are you going to choose to join you to sit and drive the Porsche? And he thought that was the best line, the best response ever. And, was printed on the back of the book. But boating is for the family. The Porsche is for one or two people.
Yeah, great. See, and again, for me, strategically, you knew your audience, you knew your ideal customer, you knew what the drivers were. This is strategic. And I'm going to keep kind of saying that and pointing it out because that's the difference. A lot of the time books are written, and I talk a lot about, is the book up to the job? And that means, does the book lead the customer to buy from you? And that's what this book did so well. It erased the myths. It turned it from being maybe a selfish acquisition into a family acquisition.
And that's why the wives or the female partner would come into my office and say, look, my husband's thinking about buying a boat. Can you give me some ideas of how it would be for a family? I talk about that in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I talk about the benefits, the kids to learn responsibility. They understand the weather. They can look at planning and the whole element of safety. I mean, there's so much deep learning that the entire family can get out of boat ownership.
Yeah, perfect. So what was the result for you? Like the tangible. What did you get out of that book for you? What changed in the world of the boat guy?
Oh wow! So there were so many things. Firstly, as a result of this book, we'd sold. We'd sold hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of boats. I went to an evening once as the author of Honey, Let's Buy a Boat, and I spoke to it was a Chinese member networking evening, and they were looking at luxury products, fancy cars and boats. And I spoke to them about my book and boat ownership. And as a result of that, there were like 50 people in the room. As a result of that, we'd sold within a week, 800 grand's worth of boats to people. So the book's paid for itself hundreds of times over. So I can, we made sales as a direct result of the book. So Andrew, I've got this box here full of articles, magazines, newspapers, of which I was asked to be a guest writer as a result of being an author. So I'm just going to grab them. It's a big box. There's CEO magazine. I thought that was Clio magazine, but it was CEO magazine. There was Queensland Mining and Energy. There is the Retiree magazine. I've got a whole tub of those things. So I got plenty of exposure. But Andrew, I also got invited to host the Beach and Bay Report for 3AW Radio as a result of that. I was the expert in boating through my boating series of books. Radio station wanted me to host a segment called the Beach and Bay Report. So I would tell everybody on a Friday night, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, and I did it 100 times live every summer, for which I got paid for. Where's the best places to go boating in Melbourne? As the author of Honey, Let's Buy a Boat, as an author, as the boat guy. And that just did enormous things for our business. I got speaking gigs as a result of that. I hosted a TV show.
That's right.
Yeah, hosted a TV show that was on one of the Foxtel channels about boating. It opened up so many doors.
It was a differentiator, wasn't it? And you went from a guy, successful businessman running a great business and doing that. And for those that don't know Darren's background, you worked at Apple for 10 years. You've like many of us, an interesting kind of a past there. But it was really the beginning. The book enabled this extraordinary profile building piece, and you became firmly entrenched as the boat guy, and everyone knew it. And Honey, Let's Buy a Boat played such an integral part, and that's because you wrote a great book and it was strategic. But you got better. So all of a sudden, Darren said, "Hey, I want to write another book." So I'm selling boats, I'm doing this kind of stuff, and he said, "I want to write a book about Honey, Let's Go boating." And, okay, why, Daz? I got to get them out. They got to be out in the water. It's got to be this thing. So I imagined this cute little how-to book, and instead the brick arrived.
The super brick.
This is Honey, Let's Go boating, which is one of, I think out of all of my 1,000+ authors I've worked with, no one has written and published a book of this magnitude. And when it arrived in my letterbox, I sent Darren a message saying that my postie is suing me for back damage, having to carry this thing up this long driveway to my place. So
you talk about strategy, Andrew. This book changed it all for me. And I'll tell you why I say that. I'm in Melbourne, right? And for everybody who's listening to this, Melbourne's not known as a boating capital. It's not like sunny Queensland or has the beauty of Sydney Harbour, etc. Melbourne is the ugly sister of boating. And so what I would get quite often, these people coming into my office, walking the dog, eating ice creams, doing all that stuff, saying, oh, these boats are all great, but this is bloody Melbourne. Where are we going to go boating in Melbourne? And I went, oh, no, that's an opportunity. There are so many beautiful places to go boating in Melbourne. So I thought I would write the 101 bucket list of boating destinations here in Victoria. So that has a look at all the, Port Phillip Bay, Western Port Bay. It looks at Gippsland Lakes. It looks along the Murray. It looks at inland waterways like Lake Eildon and Lake Eppalock, etc. And there's boating plethora of wonderful places to go and things to do. So I basically sat down with a big map and charted all the different spots. And then I wrote a section on each spot. Where's the best coffee? Because we all love coffee. What conditions does it need to be? What's the best wind for boating in a particular location? Because, boating's all about safety and being responsible. And then I looked at, where can you get some lunch? What can the kids do? What's an attraction nearby that you might want to go and see? So for an example, at St Kilda, along that beautiful foreshore here in Melbourne, there's penguins out there on the end of one of the piers you can go and have a look at. You don't have to pay for this, right? You park your boat at the visitors' jetty, or you can drive down there if you don't have a boat and look at the boats, and you can walk down to the end of the pier and see the penguins. So I documented all this stuff, which became great content for my radio show, and it also became terrific content for boat owners.
And so
it was smart.
It was, mate. And I'm glad that you acknowledged that it was smart, because that, again, what's the problem? And so strategically saying, well, the problem is, I want to buy a boat, but hell, there's nowhere to really go. It's Melbourne. What do you do? Imagine you turn around and go, oh, well, there's a few places to go here. There's 101, and here's this incredibly detailed thing that now people that are buying boats from you using your marina services, there's your wish list of places to go. Now, the question that I've got here, Daz, what changed for you when all of a sudden you've got 2 books? Now it's a series. So from that point of view, did you notice any changes in your, role as an author, in, credibility? Any of those really?
Yeah. So I found a really big level of responsibility on my shoulders and I didn't want people to see the books as a means of selling boats. I saw the book as helpful marketing, I wanted to be the go-to guy, and how to be the go-to guy is to be really helpful and knowledgeable and open and approachable, so people can come and ask, what they think are the silliest boating questions, and I can answer them and make them feel, that it wasn't a waste of time or feeling embarrassed. And I just think that people saw me and my business in a really different light. We were putting ourselves out there ahead of our opposition. I can tell you that. None of my opposition were doing this. I interviewed some of my opposition in the book. Thought the best way I could make my opposition feel like they're still, they're not getting left behind, was to actually interview them and include their opinions. Some of them were terrific. All of them were terrific. And none of them gave me a hard time afterwards. Oh, you're a smart ass, Darren, for writing the book, and, all that sort of stuff that opposition people in business tend to do. They were really mature about it. They loved the input. In actual fact, they started giving the book to some of their clients because they knew the book wasn't all about me selling boats. It was about positioning boating as a better thing. I won an award from the Boating Industry Association as the best boating promotion. I'd achieved a few other things along the way. So the notion of just selling boats disappeared. I became the all-encompassing sort of Google of boats, if you like. I knew the answers to the questions and people felt really comfortable. So I'd get emails or questions about boating and it was fine. I just know this. Karma's a good thing, right? So if I'm approachable and answering all their questions and being open and etc., then they're going to come back and they're going to recommend me. They're going to use my services. I'll just get it back in tons. And we did. I had people who bought my book who said, gave the book to a friend and the friend's got coming into my office. Oh, I read this book my friend gave me. And there's some questions I want to ask you. My wife and I are looking to buy a boat. Or we read your book, Honey, Let's Sell the Boat, the last one in the trilogy.
Part 3, okay, you got to have that. Exactly.
And people would come into me and say, look, I'm thinking of selling my boat, but I've got your book here, and on page 89, I just wanted to ask you this and this and this. And look, you know what? What about we just get you to sell the boat for us, because you obviously know what you're doing. Andrew, I had 100% success rate in getting listings for boats because people had read my book. Or I was the author of the book that became some of the standards that the Boating Industry Association implemented in their certification program. I mean, it was extraordinary.
So again, under the theme of the show here about the business of being an author, when you look at it and why again, I wanted to interview you, Daz, around this concept of commerciality and strategy and going, right from the start, once you were into it, that first book was such a clever strategy about differentiating you, becoming a tool to do the heavy lifting. I think you got such clarity around who your ideal readers were and what the purpose of the book was for. Then the second part about that is then, okay, now you've got to go boating. Here's a list of if you don't think there's anywhere to go, the strategy then kicks in. And the third book, again, when you said, I want to write the book, Honey, Let's Sell a Boat, I'm kind of going, why? But of course, that's the logical part. So again, you built a trilogy. They all had multiple kind of clever strategies behind them. And you got this extraordinary, you got direct sales, you got credibility in the industry, you got media profile, you got boat sales and opportunities. And so you kind of package all of that up and go, to me is kind of like a masterclass in publishing, being around the concept of the business of being an author.
The thing that people, particularly on social media, would say was that, sell the boat. What a waste of money buying a boat. No wonder they're selling it. But I can tell you that the vast majority of people that were selling their boats were going to a bigger boat.
Yeah, upgrading.
They're upgrading. They're getting more room. They now feel comfortable about it. They know where they can go boating. They're going to go, oh, wow, this is great. I want more people on board. I want more comfort. I want more facilities. So people weren't getting rid of it because it was a dud exercise. They were getting rid of it to upgrade. We would get the sale of their boat. And most of the time we would get the upgrade, and we own the service centre at St Kilda Marina. So we would do 300 boat services a year, the mechanical side of things. So if they upgraded their boat, they bought a boat from somewhere else, I'm a great guy, they would use us to service their boat. 300 of them a year we did. We had the fuel dock at St Kilda Marina. So every time they want to go boating, they're going to use my fuel bowser and my fuel to fill up. We wash boats, we clean boats, we provided a laundry service for boat owners. And so give me the keys, you go and enjoy your life, I'll look after your boat.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. It's such an end-to-end kind of thing. Now, keep moving on. We've got to change of pace. So you sold the business and, it's like, okay, well, what happens to the boat guy now? You'd built that all around. So you started a new business as an accountability coach. And that was a really interesting, and again, the reason was an obvious reason, I think, for you to do that, because it's actually what you're very, very good at, is holding yourself accountable, but also helping teach other people how to do that. Now, we were chatting, as we do in the early stages of you setting up that business, and you said again, I've got to write a book around that. And it was interesting again because it was almost like, okay, you had your model from the boat guy kind of model, and honey, let's buy a boat, let's sell a boat, let's go boating, rah, rah, to now one of the major thing you did from a marketing point of view was to write this book, which is obviously the Accountability Advantage. And again, another fabulous book, Play Your Best Game. So what was your strategy with that, with the new business?
So the book strategy with the new business?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because what I'd learned from my boating experience and being an author is that there is a ton of knowledge that we all take for granted that we think our clients know. And so the idea of sharing that knowledge with them and enlightening them and giving them some really relevant stories where these lived experiences from others and myself where accountability, for example, came into play, just seemed to make sense because people know they need to be accountable, but they don't know how. What are the things I need to be? You know, we read on the front page of the newspaper, you know, government held accountable. Well, what does that really mean? That's a great headline, but how do you actually do that? And so I outlined the steps, what I call my road to accountability, in the Accountability Advantage, to share with people this knowledge that I have of these ways to implement things, do things, carry out things, to give the outcomes that you're looking for within a timely fashion.
So, you know, again, that's your proprietary knowledge, and that's the book writing side of it. That's stuff that you do well that you've got now, right? You get that. But from a business point of view, why did you do this book?
Yep. Why did I do it? Because the best business card I can give someone is a book. When someone is interested in my services and perhaps hasn't yet made a decision, if I walk in there with a book or I talk to them or give them a copy of my book, you're an author for life. When I wrote my first book, I became an author. No one can ever take that away from me. When you walk into a business and you are an author and you give them a copy of your book, and it can be just something as casual as saying, in a conversation, I wrote this book about a best-selling book about accountability or boating. Let me leave you with a copy. They're going to have a look at that book. They're going to put you up in their estimations because writing a book is still considered to be one of the most amazing achievements, like you climbed Everest. Oh, you wrote a book. They're held in really high esteem. And it just meant for me I had a wonderful calling card. But again, like all my books, it wasn't just based on, it's just not a fancy business card. It's proven tips. You can implement that and you can make yourself more accountable by the time you finish reading it.
Yeah. That's a really great point though too, Darren, that it really irritates me when people go, I've just got to write a book. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to have much. I can just use AI, just churn anything out. It's about having the book for the credibility. And you kind of go, people are smarter than that. Don't underestimate people's intelligence. If I pay $34.95 and your book's a dud, that's not really the point. The point is kind of bigger than that. It's like it's actually becomes damaging to your brand. And we all know what it's like to buy something and be disappointed with it. It's wonderful when you buy something and you're pleasantly surprised or really surprised and really impressed with it. So the point being that you created that. So what I love is you looked at the boating business that you had and what you had achieved and what you had done and the integral part that publishing books played in that. Then you started a new business and did exactly the same thing. So you said, right, I need to have a business because I need to have a book rather, because I know that that's going to give me credibility in this space. It's going to be that introduction piece. It's going to differentiate me from others. It's going to show my value and show my knowledge. But, of course, being Darren Finkelstein, you didn't stop there. You wrote another book, which is called, my fabulous one, No, and a great book, Building a Life of Choice Without Obligation, which now became the second book in your series, really, as an accountability coach, based on, from what I understand, our conversations were people struggling to say no, and that is what leads to all kinds of issues. But the strategy again, why did you write the second book in this new business?
So it was really evident to me in my coaching sessions, whether it's a group coaching session or one-on-one sessions that I have with my clients, that as business owners, they could do with saying no more often to more things, and they should do it feeling proud, and they should do it feeling committed, and they shouldn't be scared of just saying no. And I realized that as human beings, we might feel like we need to say no to something, but we end up saying yes because we don't know how to word that no in a way that's respectful, that's empathetic, that's not just bang. It's not hard on no. It's like no is go away, bugger off sort of thing. And it was really evident to me that more business owners need to say no to more things so they can focus on what's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice.
And so, so I peeled that apart and looked at different ways why people are scared of saying no, and did some of the real research into why we as humans, and it's generational too, by the way, why we feel uncomfortable about it. And I can tell you, I can remember stories my dad told me when I was a kid about the importance of saying yes to everything. Because if you say yes to everything, then you open yourself up to opportunities, and you feel like you'll be a team player. And it's like, Dad, I love my dad dearly, bless him. He's not with us anymore. But I can tell you that I would have been better off just saying no to a whole lot of things, and people saying no to me instead of saying yes when they really weren't capable of delivering. And, look at a supplier of products for your business. Someone takes on a client and they, fingers crossed, think they can wing it and pull it all together. Well, they don't end up delivering. Expectations get destroyed, and the whole thing falls apart. They would have been better off just saying, no, sorry, that's not where my skill set is, and backing away from it instead of trying to wing it and make something out of nothing.
Yeah, nice. And obviously, it's a topic you're passionate about. I come back again to the business side of it. You know what I mean? And not so much, again, that, when we're diving into it, but it's again how you're utilizing these books to do that. So, sorry, mate, after you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So I could be doing a corporate presentation to somebody, and we're talking about accountability, and then we come up to the component where we need to say no more often. And then I've got a book. I've got a framework in that book that enables the recipients of that framework to understand things that they can implement straight away. There's a ready-made solution for them. It makes great content. It's terrific to talk about the success stories and the real reasons, the lived experiences that are in that book through me and through other people. It became an integral part of my business because clients are asking for that information. They want more knowledge to handle a no situation.
Yeah, great. And again, though, the whole point here, having a purpose for the book, having a strategy for the book, and then utilizing it from a commercial perspective. That's what this is all about. So I think another thing I take out of talking to you, Darren, we got to wrap it up now, is that this, you're so passionate about your topics, right? Whether it be, honey, go back, 13, 14 years, you're still as passionate about, honey, let's buy a boat as you are back then, and you're not even in the industry. But so the commercial element of it, you still got to be, passionate about your topic. You still got to know your topic really well. You still got to know your customers really well. This is not just about writing a book, churning out a book for the sake of having a book. It's about having a book for a strategic application. And
correct. So what happens, Andrew, is that someone who has read one of my books then comes to my office or makes a phone call, sends me an email, and wants to discuss some detail. Let me explain this to you. one of the amazing things that happened out of the Accountability Advantage was someone went to my website, had a look, and went, wow, I will need to meet this guy. So I ended up getting a phone call from Scott Pape, the Barefoot investor, who said, who had read the Accountability Advantage and said, love to have breakfast, and inserted in his copy of the book tons of sticky notes and highlighted sections. And when we were getting together for breakfast, he wanted me to elaborate on these points and talk about them. He came with this book all marked up, ready to go. So if I'm not authentic, if I just downloaded my book and used Chat GPT or some other AI thing and thought I could wing it and bum together a book, when I sit down with Scott Pape and I'm having breakfast with Australia's biggest selling author and he's asking Darren Finkelstein, of all people, who's, yes, I've written a few books, but this is like off the charts in my head. And he wants to know specific things about accountability. If I can't look him in the eye and answer those questions and do it with passion, do it with energy, and do it with substance, he's going to see right through me.
Absolutely.
So that's why we as authors have a responsibility to make sure what we're putting out here, and we're putting our name on it, and we're getting wonderful people like yourself to write quotes in it, is the best book we can possibly write about our subject matter. You can't just wing this stuff.
Awesome. All right, folks, look, we're going to wrap it up. Great session. Thank you, Darren. I think there's a lot in there for anyone who's listening or watching this. Again, I hope that you got the clear messages there. I'm sure you did, about strategic rollout of books, the value of doing series. I'm a big fan of a series of books. I think that you build on your credibility. There's the layers of commerciality that you, I think, introduced there, particularly in the boating kind of books. It's a different business you have now, but it's still opening. It's still about opportunities. It's still about credibility. It's still about all of that, right? When you look through it. So, and the last part about it, which I'm so glad that you bought into this, is really having that fire in the belly about the topic that you're writing about, having that passion for it as well. Because I think that can often be a bit that is overlooked as part of what will make a book commercially successful in your business model, in your arsenal of business tools. Any last words of advice for people around the business of being an author, Darren?
You've got to own your space. As an author, people ask me to sign a book. I used to, I think we talked about it. I think you gave me a counselling session on it once, that I should embrace that. And I should enjoy every minute of that. But I enjoy I enjoy every bit about being an author, because there's not that many authors in this world, and a little bit of me is in every paperback copy that goes out to sit next to someone's bedside table. And when people read it, I want them to have the energy. I want them to have a full dose of Darren. If they don't want a full dose of Darren, that's fine. Don't read my books. But this is me, and I'm proud of it.
And that, to me, is the author mindset, again, which we've done in videos and sessions, and we'll keep talking about. That is the essence. And I'm not sure whether I should have interviewed you for author mindset or strategy or series or passion, but we got the whole lot together. So we'll put all of your info, Daz. It'll be available in the show notes, but tickthoseboxes.com. Is it .com.au? Tickthoseboxes.com.au is the easiest place to get a hold of Darren. Connect with him on social media. You're amazingly responsive. And as I said, there's a lot covered, and generosity is one of your hallmarks, Darren, in terms of helping people, offering advice and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that if you reach out to him, he'll get back to you and offer you advice as well about everything from buying a boat to being accountable to writing a book. We'll catch you all. But thank you so much for your time today, mate.
It's my pleasure, Andrew. It's an honour to be interviewed by the master himself.
Thanks, Darren. Talk to you soon.
Love you, AG. See you, mate.
Folks. Thank you very much for sticking around. and I hope you got great value out of this episode of the Business of Being an Author podcast. Now, I'd also like to say that, of course, there is a book out called The Business of Being an Author, and it's all about the things that we're covering on the podcast, and I think it's perfect for any of you who are aspiring authors ready to really leverage that book. If you'd like to know more about that, you can visit www.andrewgriffiths.com or www.theauthoracademy.com.au. We'll put contact details in the show notes, and I really look forward to your company on the next episode. If you've got an idea for an author that you'd like me to interview, reach out, drop us a line. Righto, folks. Thank you.